Hey guys, today I'm canning Atlantic salmon, beautiful Atlantic salmon. So this is what you're going to need. A jar lifter, a lid lifter, something to protect your counter space with. You're going to need something to wipe your jars with. I use vinegar and paper towel. You can use a clean cloth. I have a half a teaspoon that's going in each jar of canning and pickling salt. And you're going to need something to burp your jars with. With this kind of thing, when you're working with salmon, it's really hard to burp. So usually I do use the stir sticks a lot, mostly for everything. But with the salmon, I usually use this. You're going to need a very hot pot for your lids and your rings. You don't want it to come up to a boil, but you want it extremely hot. If you have trouble with cloudy jars, just put a little bit of vinegar into your canner. This is a little bit different. When you're canning salmon, you need your canner to be at room temperature. So I'm not going to turn up the heat until I get my canner full. I'm sterilizing my jars in the oven. You don't need to sterilize your jars when you're pressure canning, only when you're water bath canning. But with that being said, this is something I always do, but when you're working with salmon, it may be a good idea to sterilize those jars. Better be safe than sorry. When you do sterilize your jars for salmon, you have to put them out on the counter and bring them down to room temperature. It's not a good idea to can salmon in a hot jar. So do this ahead of time. Sterilize your jars if you're going to do that. Put it on the countertop. Let it come down to room temperature. A lot of this I'm going to be canning without the skin, and a couple of pieces that I will be canning with the skin. If you're going to take the skin off of the salmon, all you need to do, I hope you can see that, is grab a hold. Make a little angle with your knife, pointing down, and keep your knife angled down, and just keep wiggling along. When you have enough of a piece to hold on to with the skin, I find it helpful if I just take paper towel and grab a hold of that, so it gives you a nice firm grip, and keep on going. And you should have a nice piece of fish left over. And here's the skin. You're not going to get a lot of waste if you keep your knife angled down towards the skin while you're taking the skin off. We have our beautiful salmon. I've rinsed them off in ice cold water. The biggest thing that you have to remember when you're working with fish is it has to be very, very cold. It's super important. Never let this go down to room temperature. It should be absolutely 100% cold. So all I'm going to do is cut these into smaller pieces to fit into my jar. I try to keep them on the bigger side because we all know what happens in the canner. It all softens up and falls to pieces. The bigger pieces I cut into two, and then say I have small pieces here like this one, I will just wrap it like that and put it into the jar. So here's my salmon all cut up. If you're camping and you're working with fish and you can't get to it quite right away when you want to, put it on ice. It has to be on ice. If you're at home, put it in the fridge in the coldest spot. It's really important. When you're done working with your fish, just a quick reminder, please wash down your counters and make sure that everything is washed and put away before you start the next step. I have my jar that's cooled down, and all you have to do is start putting in your salmon. I'm going to try to fit this last piece to the inch line. I have a lot of air bubbles in here. There's one big one, there's another one. Try to get those air bubbles out, even with big chunky things like raw meat and fish. Do the best you can. I'm going to put my half a teaspoon of canning pickling salt in. Get my paper towel and vinegar. This is really, really important. My hot lid. My hot ring. And finger firm. Finger firm to me is first resistance and a little tug, and that goes right into the canner. I'll show you one more. This one is with the skin. They always say put the skin side out. I don't really think that it matters, to tell you the truth. It's just basically for appearance, I think. You're going to debubble and try to get those bottom air pockets out the best you can. Put your half a teaspoon of salt in. You don't have to put this much salt in if you don't want to. Get your paper towel and your vinegar. Make sure that the rim is nice and clean and dry. Your hot lid and your hot ring. Finger firm and a little tug. I put my jars in the pressure canner. Now I'm going to bring it up to high and bring that temperature up. When there's a full steady stream of steam coming out of here and this nipple comes up, I'm going to time it for 10 minutes. These jars are 250 milliliter jars. They're the jam jars, and they have to be processed for 100 minutes. 100 minutes is an hour and 40 minutes. It's a really long run time. This has been venting for 10 minutes, so now I'm going to go put my weight on. When this weight starts to jump up and dance, I'm going to turn my heat down and I'm going to time it for 100 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes. After the 100 minutes was up, I took it right off the heat. I let it come down in pressure. The button's gone down. I took the weight off. I let it sit for 1 minute. And when you take the lid off, please be very careful and lift it away from you. It's very hot in there. And I just let it sit like that for about a minute or two. These are the ones with the skin on the outside. That looks absolutely gorgeous. These are super hot, so be very careful. These are going to sit on my counter for 24 hours. I'm not going to touch them, move them, fuss with them, and we'll see what we have tomorrow. To wash my jars, all I do is put a little bit of soap on my cloth, warm water, and make sure that everything is off them. Give them a rinse and dry them. I got 9 jars out of these. One I gave to my son. They all seal. Bonus. Salmon is personally, to me, just personally, like gold on your shelf. Even if you don't eat a lot of salmon and somebody gives you salmon, or you go fishing and you get salmon and can it up, you can always trade this for something that somebody else has an abundance of that you don't have, because it's that good. It's so nutritious and it really tastes clean. If you ever had tuna or fish from the store in the can, it has a tinny taste. When you can your own salmon, it actually tastes very fresh and clean. This is the jar without the skin, and this is the jar with the skin. That's gorgeous. So if you have an opportunity to can salmon, I would, even if it was just a few little jars before you can get some more, have a couple, maybe barter some out. For sure try it, because you'll be fascinated and stunned by how clean it is and how delicious it actually is. Don't forget to label and date your jars, super important. Till next time, hey do.